Cieszę się, Iza, że dołączyłeś, jak to mówią nieraz, nie będziemy ukrywali, że się znamy.
Isa, it's a pleasure to have you. I think we're on first name terms.
Wiem, że brałeś udział, ale ja nigdy nie brałem jeszcze...
I have never participated in something that's called Fireside Chat. I was on the other side of that chat. I'm not sure what it's all about. Maybe I should have some special method of talking to you. I was trying to learn what this Fireside Chat was all about. And I looked up some sources, and apparently it's not a conversation at all. But if my sources are correct, it's a different kind of a chat. This formula was apparently invented by President Roosevelt in the 1930s and 40s, because he would sit at a fireplace, and talk to the Americans about the Great Depression, emergency, the Banking Act, the Depression, the New Deal, or the war. So all he talked about apparently was some horrible things, and well, it's a different situation these days. It's 100 years later. So, he would just sit in front of a camera and talk to the audience in front of television. These days, the technology allows us to do it differently, and we'll be getting feedback from our audience. So, we'll be listening to the Fireside Chat, but we will be able to respond. Right, so there's lots of different topics here. We know that very important things are happening around in terms of geopolitics and cybersecurity. First of all, when you think about the war in Ukraine, cybersecurity in that respect looks slightly different to what experts had predicted. And there's cybersecurity itself, there's geopolitics, and these two impact business, economy, society, international relations, and things like that. So let's try to have a comprehensive, clear picture of the situation, and maybe you can comment on these different aspects that I mentioned and tell us what the current trends are. I know that you've been working with different organizations and working on these topics. So what does it look like? For example, if we look at business and geopolitics, what should we pay particular attention to, and what challenges are there? Good afternoon. Thanks for inviting me, and thank you, Mirek, for this introduction. Yes, it's a shame we don't have a proper fireplace here for this fireside chat. But I think I'll have a chance to meet all of you, ladies and gentlemen, in the evening during dinner. Right. So, how do we understand cybersecurity these days? I'll try to start with this topic. A few days ago, there was another SciCon conference in Estonia, and General Nakasone said something that came as a surprise to many people and sort of heated the atmosphere when he said that the USA is carrying out offensive attacks on Russian targets in order to help Ukraine. And he also said something that's very pertinent in the third decade of the 21st century. He said that cybersecurity is equal to national security. So this has changed over the years. I think back when we met in 2015, cybersecurity was more of a technological challenge, and it wasn't considered such a high priority. These days, it's a multifaceted challenge, to be sure. It's strategic, it's priority for states, And this is manifested in a number of areas, in the military and in civilian. Now, if we look at military, we can see that cyber warfare troops are established. So they are established to defend the country in the cybersphere, but also to have offensive capabilities. So this is cyber weapons, so to say. Cyber commands and cyber HQs are also set up. So this is the military aspect. Now this is very important because what we do militarily in the cybersphere, this is part of the military doctrine. And the situation in Ukraine confirmed this, and also some earlier decisions by NATO member states, when, for example, they said that cyberspace is one of the domains of military action, and that a serious cyber attack can also trigger Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty. The decision makers understand more and more that cyberspace and cybersecurity are holistic in nature, and that they cover all the different sectors of economy, of the administration, local authorities, and so forth. So the question is the state doing enough to protect all of these elements? That's a different story, but at least there's this effort to strengthen national cyber systems, to establish agencies that deal with national cybersecurity, and so forth. Another dimension where we can see that cybersecurity is national security is about developing cooperation with the private sector. ICT companies, technology companies are often called supporting organizations from the point of view of the government. And this is because cybersecurity depends on those companies. It's these companies that have created this environment. They own a lot of networks and systems, and they also have the production capabilities in terms of both hardware and software. And they also own digitized facilities and the so-called critical infrastructure. So cooperating with these companies is also a very important challenge. Now the dilemma is, how do we get these companies involved? How do we encourage them to make this effort together? And how to make this geopolitical aspect important to them too? And this brings me to your second question about the strategic posture of business. Let me again start from a quotation. Now, there was quite a lot of different conferences during the pandemic, many of them very important. And here I have a quote from Jens Stoltenberg, NATO Secretary General, who was present in Davos at the World Economic Forum 2 weeks ago, where he said, "Free trade isn't the most important thing, security is." So not looking at short-term profits, but looking at long-term security is what we should base our decisions, including business decisions, on. And he was referring to Nord Stream 2 and to 5G technology, that he believes will make or break our security in the near future.
And as he said, it requires building business partnerships with trustworthy partners, reliable partners. So these two things, cybersecurity is a matter of national security, which is more important than just short-term business profits. This approach is going to shape the landscape within the nearest future. Right, so we have new technology, and we can hear the words of those who were watching us passively in the past. Right, we are talking about business a lot during this conference, and now we can hear from you that business is not what matters, but security is what matters, cybersecurity in the case of our conference. I would very much like to hear about the comment on that. I'd like us to have a clear-cut picture so that someone says that I'm not going to deal with business anymore because it's not going to fulfill this free market economy characteristics that I would like my business to develop. Nord Stream 2 or 5G are nice examples. This is a lesson learned at the moment, and there were some regulations in place. So how can people who are doing business should understand it? I'm not speaking about patriotic objectives for businesses, but I'm speaking of reliable partners, that we should build partnerships for strategic digital projects, taking into account the reliability and trustworthiness of the partner. Or when we speak about a transfer of technologies, this is what matters within the context that we are discussing. Governments of states will be more careful in the future, I believe. And we have to increase security, cybersecurity of different sectors to help our companies within the country who are at the forefront among the legal entities that have to be trustworthy. We support them in terms of security, and when developing cooperation with transatlantic entities, businesses, they are part of our security structure, and we have to build partnerships with like-minded countries. And this is what Jens Stoltenberg kept in mind while uttering his words in Davos. Great point. Maybe we should devote an entire debate to that issue. But in order to add more detail to the situation, what about the role of a society? Generally speaking, when we discuss cybersecurity, we speak of clients, customers, end users, and we are complaining about the end user. And contrary to these trends and the sector I represent personally, I'm always replying he or she is not a bank's client in order to think about cyber security or takes part in auctions in order to read a cyber security manual, because the end user generally expects that these transactions are going to be secure. So when speaking of national security, you've mentioned, can we count on our society? Can society handle this situation, issues related to security? How can we manage fulfillment of this role? Let me go back a few minutes. So there is competition within the cyberspace, like in the mirror reflection of the geopolitical situation today. We can see these different aspects. We are in between war and peace. It is something like unpeace, as some thinkers say. So in this situation, Given that context, the role of a society and responsibilities of individual members of society comes to the fore. And within cyberspace, we have to be very conscious and cautious when using cyber space tools and digital tools. During previous discussions, and we have reiterated that for years, that the weakest link in the chain is a human being. He or she is a soft spot. So we have to educate, raise awareness about threats, so that we build the appropriate hygiene of the use of cyberspace. And we have to work on responsibilities of citizens, of members of society. It is a new buzzword, a new trend, which is typical of these uneasy times that we live in. And so the social resilience is important. We have to be aware of this rivalry, that we are prone to some disinformation, which may cause chaos or be a partner within the dispute and may shift the balance. And the social resilience has to be built up. It is extremely important, and we will be following these efforts and initiatives, but this is a topic for another debate. Resilience has become a buzzword again. For years, decades of focusing on these issues, it is a practical consequence of the repetition of the statement that there is no such, I think, as 100% security. So we have to be resilient in order to get back to business as usual. We have 5 minutes left. I'm interested in your opinion. Something that we like, which is good for our ego, that in the aftermath of this geopolitical tension, this part of Europe, Central and Eastern Europe, and we are personally flattered, or should it flatter us, that we have this opinion of a player, that Poland, as a result of these tragic events, we can build up our position. How can we reflect on that from the point of view of cybersecurity, focusing on our special role, Poland, and there is the 3C initiative, cybersecurity forum, and you personally have raised this issue. I believe that a very important decade is ahead of us from the point of view of security, including cyber security. We have to build approaches that will increase our resilience as regards geopolitical rivalry and competition. And it is important to build cyber power, cyber resilience. And it's not only understood in the sense of cybersecurity capabilities, potential, and resilience, but it is also about innovative approach, the right technological attitude. When we build advantages, use new technologies to build up our hard power and soft power. It is extremely important that we have to invest in this. We have to spend more money on development and research in this area. We have to cooperate with international institutions, NATO and the EU can actually offer support, and they want to develop these opportunities and these initiatives and to build up soft power, hard power. And Poland has a potential, and we are located geographically in this way that we are part of Central and Eastern Europe, and we are at the crossroads, and we have this critical position, and this national effort helps us to be ahead of threats, to adjust to the situation, and we want to win as part of this geopolitical rivalry and to protect our needs and interests. And please read our report, Kościuszki Institute. Isa, please say a few words about the report. You had quite a number of publications that tackle on this issue. Yes, we have recently published and we presented this publication in Davos, the 3 Cs initiative and digital power. So please get acquainted with this report and its findings. It's worthwhile. One of the findings is that we have a potential to become the technological hub in this part of the world, which is going to build new technologies for security sector and defense sectors. As Kościuszko Institute, and I would like to say that cybersecurity made in Poland covers 50 companies, small and medium-sized enterprises, and your company that you represent. And it is the beginning of a long road forward for us as a country. I hope we are going to do that and we are going to succeed. It's not only a chance, a potential, but potential is engendered with risks. So we have to manage these risks, and we wish you well, and thank you very much for presenting this very important aspect in detail. Thank you very much, and a round of applause to you.